Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. Today we have Paddy Nicol of Orogen Royalties. Orogen has 28 gold, silver, and copper royalties in their portfolio. They are geographically located in Canada, the United States, all in Nevada, 6 in Mexico, South America, and 3 in Kenya, Africa. Orogen has an offer on the table from Triple Flag Precious Metals to buy their biggest flagship asset, the royalty on the Silicon Merlin deposit. This deposit is located in southern Nevada and is currently being drilled out by AngloGold Ashanti. We're going to pick his brain and ask the questions that you submitted. Paddy, thank you for coming back on the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Pleasure is all on this side of the table. I've been looking forward to this one. We've tried to do this interview several times, and
right.
You had to politely decline, and now we know why. So congratulations.
Thank you.
As a shareholder, I got to say I'm stoked. And Adrian, one of our listeners, I think he put it best. He says, "Thank you for quadrupling my money. Happy shareholder and a believer in Orogen SpinCo." So well
exactly. Well, thank you. Thanks very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So for those who are not familiar with Orogen Royalties, go ahead and give us just kind of a brief general overview of Orogen.
Sure. Okay. So Orogen Royalties is what we are. We're a royalty company, and our business model, I would say, is a bit different from the traditional royalty companies that you might see in the market. Our royalties are generated organically in that the roots of the company are based in prospect generation. So we actually work on early stage exploration targets. We create high quality projects. We take those projects and we sell them or joint venture them out to industry exploration partners. And through those transactions, we clip cash payments, share payments, and the most important part of that is the royalty. And so as you alluded to earlier, our portfolio was about 28 royalties. That's where a bulk of those royalties have come from. And through our efforts, we have created 2 really exciting key royalty assets, one being the Ermitano royalty, which we'll talk about probably through our presentation here in our discussions, which is our cash flowing royalty and has provided a tremendous stable platform over the past 4 years. And then we've got the Silicon Merlin royalty, which is now the subject of the transaction you just mentioned with Triple Flag, and that has become a wonderful asset in Nevada.
Okay, so your 2 big ones. The one that's been really nice is Ermitano, because that creates cash flow, which is rare
Correct.
for beginner companies like this. And then your huge deposit, Silicon Merlin, which we're going to get into. But
Correct.
Basically, your prospect generator. You have other companies drill it out for you, and you either clip some cash off of that, or you get a royalty.
Exactly. And it's a risk mitigation tactic. It provides the company with longevity. It keeps the share dilution count down to a minimum. And we've been very fortunate over the past number of years. We've been able to keep shareholders whole in their ownership of the company while we've expanded on a bunch of exciting exploration opportunities and creating royalties in that process. So our focus with the company has always tried to be on the bottom line of keeping things profitable or on a net zero cost basis. And we've been very successful over the past 4 or 5 years now of creating these royalties at very low cost to shareholders and maintaining profitability in the company. Our treasury is about 24 million Canadian as it stands today. There's no debt in the company either.
Okay, and market cap?
About 380 million Canadian as of today.
Okay, yeah. Thanks to the nice bump. Okay, 380 million Canadian and 24 million Canadian cash.
Correct. All Canadian.
Okay. All right. Okay, ownership. Who owns your company? Any vested partners?
So we have Altius Minerals, and I think a lot of your viewers are aware of who Altius is, diversified royalty company, and they own approximately 18.65% of us. They've been a fantastic shareholder. They've owned shares through alliances that we've done historically with them, through private placements. They've purchased shares in the open markets. They've been big believers of our efforts and our business model, and that's really what got them to the 18.6%. Adrian Day Asset Management is approximately about 16% of the company, and he has owned shares through mostly purchasing shares in the open market and through private placements historically as well. And so those are the 2 major shareholders. They make up about 40% of the company.
Okay.
Along with management and and some other key individuals, but that's about 39.5% of the issued and outstanding shares of the company.
Okay, about 4 out of 510 shares come from there.
Yeah.
And what percentage of the company do you own?
I own just over 1%, so that's probably 2.1 million shares.
Okay, right on. So you have a vested interest in the share price doing well.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
I harp on that on the show, so I don't want you to say.
No, it's an important point to make. And look, I started with Evrim. This is one of the predecessor companies to Orogen. I was there at the IPO. Outside of one private placement, which only one participant took, I was involved in every private placement all the way through. I've purchased shares in the open market. I have never sold one share of this company. And so this is a really nice way to see where Orogen has gone over the past number of years now to get it to where it is. And my interests are solely aligned with shareholder interests.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's get into the transaction. Maybe you can share your screen here and we can do
Sure.
the PowerPoint that you and Triple Flag put together on this transaction.
Yep. Yeah. Just bear with me for a second. How does that look? Can you see that?
We can see it. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll kind of walk through it step by step. So the proposed transaction is for a corporate acquisition of Orogen by Triple Flag Precious Metals. They are fourth largest gold royalty company out there. They are going to acquire, as I mentioned, 100% of the company. And what they are getting in that acquisition is the 1% NSR royalty in the expanded Silicon project in Nevada, and which is operated by AngloGold Ashanti. And there is a residual SpinCo, and that SpinCo will hold all the other assets that are currently held by Orogen. So that being the the Ermitano royalty in Mexico, our cash flowing royalty, the portfolio royalties, the cash that we've got, the joint ventures, the existing partnerships and relationships that we have, and the data, which is very important as well. So basically, the royalty and Orogen corporates going one way, and the SpinCo and all the other assets are going in another direction. And so that is sort of the crux of the transaction.
So they're buying only this royalty and asset, and everything else is going to go into Orogen DOS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Exactly. That's exactly how it is. And then the consideration for that is that for it's $2 a share is Canadian is the top line price. Within that $2, there's $1.63 Canadian that will be in cash or Triple Flag shares. For every one share of Orogen that you hold, you get $1.63 in cash, or you get 0.05355 of a Triple Flag share. You will also get a share for the SpinCo, which is basically going to be valued at 37 cents a share once the spin out is completed. And so total consideration, as I mentioned, is $2, which is about a 38% premium to the closing price from April 17th.
Okay.
So that is what, and basically that represents 421 million Canadian purchase price for the company.
I'm sorry, how much?
421 million Canadian.
Okay.
Yeah. And so spin out, as I mentioned, will be have the existing management team. So all the group that created the Ermitano royalty, the group that created the Silicon royalty, and the existing senior team will stay on into the new company. Triple Flag is also going to invest 10 million Canadian, which will give them approximately 11% ownership in the company. And as I mentioned earlier, all the assets that we've got outside of the Silicon Merlin royalty will go into the company.
Okay.
So that is sort of the exciting part. The other parts are more of a mechanical nature. There's it's a plan of arrangement. So we've got sort of a 2-month process ahead of us where we need to get shareholder approval. As it stands today, both Adrian, Day, Altius, management of the company have all signed voting support agreements to support this transaction. So 40% of the company roughly is already voted in favor of this transaction. And so a lot of support there. We're very happy for that. And so we expect that the closing for this shareholder vote, we expect to be right around the end of June. And so it should close shortly, sometime thereafter in early July is sort of the expected close date. So really excited. The $2 share price, I think, is an important milestone for the company to achieve. Within that, you're getting tremendous value for the Silicon Merlin royalty. And I'm really excited for SpinCo. There's a lot of assets that we've had over the past number of years, which people don't really talk a lot about, mostly because everybody's been focused on Silicon and the Silicon Merlin royalty. And so now we get the daylight value and all the other things that we're doing. So we're very excited to be talking about that going forward.
Okay. Are there any other slides that you think would be good, or?
I think this is the primary one. I mean, we can step into, that's the kind of the main one. We can talk about things on a pro forma basis and what that looks like too. But that is really the crux of it. I'm happy to talk about Triple Flag if shareholders are interested in that, or investors are interested in that. And look, through my interactions with Triple Flag, I think they've got a great team. Sheldon Radicui, who is their CEO, I've gotten to know over the past while now. And he and his team are James Dendel as their chief operating officer, great group. And so I think what they've done in this acquisition is they've allowed themselves to move up sort of in that hierarchy of larger royalty companies that are out there. Assets like Silicon are so hard to come by. And you can imagine that royalty in any of the larger royalty companies' portfolio would become quite substantive. And so I think for them, they've made an excellent move by buying this, and this is certainly going to bode well for them in the future.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop. There we go. Okay. So was there any other, let's see, James and
Sheldon,
any other potential buyers for the Silicon deposit?
Yes, there are other, I mean, as through the process, do you mean, or as it stands today?
I mean, as it stands today,
no, I mean, there's nothing to prevent a company from trying to come in with a bid. We're not involved in that anymore. We've signed a deal with Triple Flag and we're very happy with it. If something comes in over the top, well, I guess we'll have to deal with that at some point. But as it stands today, we've got a great buyer in Triple Flag, and we're proceeding on that basis.
Okay. You did have other bidders, but they won.
Oh, yes, there was a competitive process, and there were lots of other bidders, and it was quite competitive. So, and unfortunately, that's really all I can say on that. We've got confidentiality agreements signed, and we can't give any detail on that.
I hear you. Okay, James wants to know. It says, will you be keeping the Triple Flag shares yourself or selling them?
I want to keep them. I believe in them. I think they're, like I just mentioned, I think Sheldon and Van der Kooi and James Dendel are great guys, and got to know their team. They're a good group of people, and I think they're really going to go places. And so I'm a believer, and I'm going to be a long-term shareholder in Triple Flag.
Okay, so you're along for the ride. He also wants to know, what are the tax consequences of this transaction for U.S. shareholders?
We will have more information coming in an information circular, so I don't want to preempt that by saying something that, because I am not an expert in that. But what I can say is that we are going to take an election 85 or an 85 election. Again, I'm not a tax expert, so don't quote me on that. But what that does is that we'll try to get it's a tax-free rollover for American shareholders, so they don't get hit with tax by owning Triple Flag shares at the outset. Again, that'll become more definitive in the information circular, and we're trying to get that out again towards the end of May, early June, and so you'll be able to have a bit more clarity. But that is our intent, is to make it as easy as possible for shareholders, American and Canadian, to hold the Triple Flag stock.
Let's see. Does this transaction trigger a change of control bonus for Orogen's management team?
Yes, it does. I had a lot of these questions. So happy to talk on this. And sort of the genesis of how this all kind of features is really based on our approach to executive compensation. Orogen is probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, paying company for executives and their salaries. We don't make nearly as much as any of the other royalty companies do by quite a factor. Continuing on that thought, we also issue probably the least amount of stock options. We issue the least amount of RSUs, DSUs to shareholders and management. And so where we thought that one day we could get a win is if we were successful in selling the company, and only when we were successful in selling the company would we get a change of control bonus. And so, yes, it has kicked in as a result of this, but it's only because we've won, not for any other reason. Stock options can move up, share prices can move up and down with the market, and we can take advantage of those situations with our stock options. We can't. The only time we were going to get rewarded is when the company and shareholders got rewarded. So we thought that this was a fair way to approach it for everyone.
Like pay for performance.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, what management salaries for the new company? They're going to be the same, lower, higher?
I think for management, they will probably be lower. We're going to have a lower market cap. And so I think our salaries will sort of be more reflective of what the new company looks like. I don't know the specific details yet, but I think that, we recognize that the value is of what the impact Silicon Merlin had on our company, and we upward adjusted our salaries based on the growth of the company. I think it's only fair to reflect that when the company goes back to a smaller valuation. So there will be some adjustments there, and I don't know to what extent. And it might just be the senior management, but we'll have to get to those details. But it's something we're seriously considering.
Okay. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen if 4 out of 10 votes have already been essentially cast.
Yes.
But let's say by some act of God, it doesn't pass. What is this going to cost Orogen?
I think, if everything else falls away, like the taxes won't happen, banker advisory fees don't happen, it would probably be the legal. You can't get away from that. Accounting can't get away from that. It would probably be a couple $1 million, I would say, of fees that we would have paid out if things didn't go our way.
Okay.
I mean, that's probably the maximum amount.
Okay. So almost nothing in the grand scheme of things.
No, but that still hurts. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. And if Triple Flag, not that they would, but if they backed out, they got to pay Orogen $12.5 million. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I think the break fee is on if like a superior bid was to come in, and another group wanted to provide a superior bid. There's a step that things have to happen because Triple Flag would have a right to match, etc. It's not just they would get beat out. So there is a thing to go through, but part of that break fee would apply in this situation. So it would cost the incoming company that amount plus the bid. So that's that's when it would trigger.
Okay. Was part of the motivation for the sale driven by large shareholders wanting cash,
No. I think, for groups like our other shareholders, I mean, there's the two big ones, Altius, they were very happy for us to have continued on as we were. I don't think there was going to be, there was no pressure from them ever. They were very supportive of how we were running our business. Adrian's on the same level. He always supported what we were doing. Never once had any sort of inkling of saying he needed a liquidity event or anything like that. He's been really good with us over the past many years, and so there was no motivation from our shareholders putting pressure on us.
Okay. All right, good to know. Okay, Cal wants to know. He says, what will happen with the over-the-counter shareholders with this transaction, and will Orogen SpinCo have an OTC listing?
For the second question, yes, it is our intention to have an OTC listing, and we would very much like to hang on to the one that we've got, because every time you do one, it costs to get another one. And when we did the acquisition of Renaissance back in 2020, we lost it and we had to reapply to get it. Now we're going to try to keep this one. What we're trying to do is we're going to keep the Orogen name. So it's Orogen Royalties is going to continue as it was. The Triple Flag's been helpful in letting us keep the name. We're going to try to keep our TSX venture symbol as well. That we're trying to do that. And we're trying to keep the OTC listing as well. So all those things are going to continue on. So it shouldn't affect anybody who is a U.S. shareholder. Everything should just continue on. What will probably change, and I guess, there's going to be new share certificates and things like that. I don't know all the mechanisms behind that, but there will be some exchange of things that come and go through this transaction in time. And you'll get those instructions. You'll get the info circ, and then you'll probably get instructions from your broker as time goes on as to what you need to do. Okay. On your electing your shares or cash and things like that. But they shouldn't have any be affected in any way.
Okay, well, that's kind of cool. You'll be able to, hopefully you'll be able to keep the same name. You don't have to call it dose or whatever. It's just
no. We talked about that. I think everybody's quite happy with it. Look, Orogen's got a good brand. We've got great relations with partners, shareholders, investors. We've got a brand, and we're very proud of that brand, and we want that to continue. So we'll keep it. We'll work as hard as we can to keep it.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen here.
Okay.
And we'll go to your website.
Sure.
And what I'm curious about, and also what Cal is curious about. So here's your royalties. Let me click on these here. Okay, so we got your Ermitano. We all know this one. This is what's been paying the bills.
Yep.
This one is the cash out. Mm-hmm. And then down here, so we got 4 in Canada, 10 here. In the U.S., all in Nevada, which is pretty cool. Which of these is your next up? Silicon was it? What?
Let's go from top to bottom. If you want to scroll back up, we can look at sort of each jurisdiction. In Canada, I would, if I'm going to try to pick one or two from each table, the one that I'm most excited about here is MPD South. That is Kodiak Copper. This is where we have a royalty on this one, located in South Central British Columbia. This is a copper gold porphyry target. We have a 2% NSR. Kodiak has been actively exploring. It's called the MPD area. There's a north and a south. They've been there for probably 4 or 5 years now, I suspect. Mm-hmm. And they've been making some wonderful progress. Initially, it was in the north called the Gate Zone. Over the years, they've moved to other parts of the property, and specifically within the South Zone. We used to call it Axe, and now it's called MPD South. So they've had some really good drill results over the past couple of years there. Kodiak is now going into resource stage studies, and they will be coming out with a resource in the northern part here first, and that's going to happen, I guess, at some point in the next quarter or so. Okay. Towards the end of the year, they'll be coming out with a resource on MPD South. And so I think there's some more drilling going on. But once they get there, we're going to be adding pounds of copper and ounces of gold to our, I guess, quote, mineral inventory, if you will. And so there's going to be increased value to that royalty because there's a first ever resource that's going to happen on that. So we're excited about the developments of that. It's still early days. It'll be, I guess it's going to be an inferred resource, but nonetheless, it is a resource, and we're very excited to see that sort of come into being.
Okay.
So that's something in Canada. Maybe go down into the United States. I think that we can talk about, is it Maggie Creek there?
Maggie Creek.
We can come back to Maggie Creek. Let's talk about Salts. This is because that's a new one. You can see salts there. It's third on the list. Yeah. So this is an interesting one. I mean, this is really early stage stuff. But there's an alliance that we've had over the past couple of years with Altius, and they've been helping fund generative exploration. We provide the manpower and the data, and they're providing a lot of the funding or almost all the funding. And we're generating silicon type analogs. And so we've got the same team on this that developed the Silicon Merlin royalty or helped us develop the Silicon Merlin royalty. And they are using the same technique and methods to look at other targets within the Walker Lane. And Celts is one of those such targets. And so we generated this, I guess it was probably a year and a half ago. And we've brought in Eminent Gold, who is now the owner of the project. And they've got a good team, and they'll be spending their time. And I guess that this year there is an intention to drill it. So, like a lot of the other targets we've been developing with Altius, these all have that potential to become a silicon type target. Would it get as big? We don't know, maybe, but certainly, even if you found something that's more Ermitano sized, it's a massive win for us. But again, we're looking for elephants with this sort of generative exploration initiative, and we're hoping that a group like Eminent will find something like that.
Okay.
So that's one. Let's go to South America.
Okay.
We can talk about Ermitano if you want to. I mean, I think there's good value in talking about Ermitano because it's the big stabilizing platform, and there's lots of new developments with it. Ermitano is located in Sonora. It's about 400 kilometers south of the U.S. Mexican border. This is a mine that's operated by First Majestic Silver. Ermitano was developed by our team in 2011. It was initially worked on as a porphyry target. We sold it, I think it was in 2015 to it was the predecessor to First Majestic's involvement in the region, but First Majestic ultimately made the discovery in 2016. 5 years later, it was in production. And the initial resource was sort of based on about 1 million ounces of gold equivalent. They've been solidly producing there for over 4 years now. And the initial mine life was 7 years. So if you took that and figured there was 3 years of mining left, they've since added new resources to the area in an area, one called Luna, but the exciting one is called Navidad. And that was discovered in July of last year. They announced an initial resource on only a portion of the veins that they've delineated to date. And so that's adding another 250,000 ounces back in. So, and some silver. So this clearly adds more years to the mine life. And the AOI, as you can see on screen, there's the area of interest where our royalty sits, is actually 167 square kilometers. It's not just on the mine. And so there's tremendous exploration potential beyond the mine east of it, also within the Navidad winter vein system that fully sits on our royalty AOI as well. So we're really excited about the future. And as you see, a lot of these mines that operate down in Mexico, they always have a few years of production ahead of them, but seem to be able to find more and more resources as time goes on. So these things aren't just 2 to 3 years down the road. They're more like 5 to 10 years down the road, and they're still producing. And with the AOI that we've got, we're perfectly set up for that longevity.
Yeah, you got a big area.
Huge. Yeah. So that's in Mexico. Maybe we can talk about Rica.
Okay.
So Rica is one of the royalties we've purchased. This isn't one that we generated. And so we acquired the royalty in 2023 from a private company, a Panamanian Swiss-based company. This is a 1% net smelter return royalty. It's subject to a 0.5% buy down for US $15 million. It is in northern Colombia in what they call the Mande Batholith. It is owned by a group called MCC Mining. They're a Vancouver-based private mining company. Last year, they raised about US $50 million, 50, to fund their exploration initiatives. They have exploration partnerships in the region. They are currently working on two porphyry deposits that are south of Rica, not on our royalty AOI. but they've really got deposits, and these projects are really unique. A lot of this ground was identified probably the late 1960s, early 1970s by the Colombian Geological Survey of the United Nations. It was an initiative to stimulate economic growth in the region. Rica stands out as one of these fantastic targets. And because of sort of the civil strife that took place in Colombia for decades, this project has sat undrilled. And so it's because of the changes in the government over the past decade. A lot of the peace process, specifically with the FARC, has now taken place, and so there's a lot more peace and stability in the region. And I know MCC has done a tremendous job on their community engagement process, and so they've really got a good license to operate in this region. And so we're excited that Rica will hopefully be drilled maybe towards the end of this year or maybe sometime in early 2026, but is one of the best undrilled porphyry targets, at least in South America. And so we're really excited for it. There's a zone of mineralization that's roughly, I think, 500 by 600 meters, 118 samples on it, averages 0.74% copper, and about half a gram per ton gold. And so never been drilled. And the AOI, there's two other targets as well in the northern part of the project that we've got. And we're super excited. And so when we talk about having an exciting portfolio of projects and royalty opportunities, we see opportunities that could be sort of on the Ermitano size, which I think are in of themselves are absolutely fantastic because you can see what Ermitano has done for us. But then you've got royalty assets like Rica that can have that silicon-sized type opportunity, and that's what we see with Rica. Like, it does have that scale and scope to become something of that value. And I'm saying that very loosely because there's not even a drill hole on it yet. But this is one of those projects that is so special that if they get anything in the drill holes, this is going to become very exciting for us.
Okay. And what would you guys pay for it?
$1.75 million US.
Okay. All right. And what about the ones in Kenya? Any of those have any?
Sure. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can talk about Rosterman. They're all very close to each other.
Okay.
So Western Kenya, Shanta Gold is, they were public. They're now private. They're owned by a private Tanzanian company. They have, two deposits in the area called, Bushingala and Isulu, I think they're called. And they are collectively, probably 1.5 million ounces of gold. And basically the lands, the royalty lands that we have are it's a greenstone belt. So we're on the east and western side of the greenstone belt. So they run right into our royalty AOI and to the north. And Rosterman is the royalty that sits to the north. It is a colonial times mine, and it produced about 250,000 ounces. The grades in these deposits are quite impressive. They're sort of like 10 to 12 grams per ton. And Rosterman was, it was like it was something like 10 or 11 grams per ton producer. And it has not been explored. It's been marginally explored, has not been reopened. And this goes back a long, long time since the last realm of our time of production on it. So I know that Rosterman is being drilled by the private company. I haven't heard any results yet. And so they started this, I guess, towards the end of last year. And I suspect they're still drilling. So because they're private, they don't announce drill holes like a public company does. So we're trying to ascertain, but we have a 3% royalty on it. And so we're excited for it. And look, I think if they start to go in production on the two deposits within this greenstone belt, I could easily see them grabbing, or if that starts to materialize on any of our projects. So we're I guess we're excited. It's probably early days, and it's harder to daylight information to the market, but we're excited for it. And a lot of these lands were once held by Acacia, which is one of Barrick's African companies. So there's been a lot of good work done on them in the past.
Okay, and so a lot of catalysts here.
Yep.
What was the one that started with M? I don't see it.
Oh, Maggie Creek. So you have to go towards our so the project generation. So the projects that are actually under options. And none of these are all royalty projects. So if you go to partnered projects on your left there, and there's more to talk about.
Partner projects, project
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah. So partnered to the left. You go to the left on your mouse where it says
Oh, there we go.
and you go to so there's three key ones in here. And we'll talk about Maggie Creek first. Maggie Creek sits right beside Gold Quarry. This is in the Carlin target in Nevada. Nevada Gold Mines owns Gold Quarry. They are earning they have an option to earn 100% interest in the lands that we have that we call Maggie Creek. Look, this is a near mine opportunity. If there's mineralization, if there's ore in this ground, they will grab it and they'll feed it into existing operations. So, they have been active here now for the past 2.5 years. They're going to be drilling this very soon. The U.S. Gold once had this ground and they drilled into it. I guess it was in 2022, and they saw all the right rocks. And this it wasn't a ton of gold, but they found all the right rocks. The stratigraphy was what everybody wanted to see, which got Nevada Gold Mines interested. And so they basically bought out U.S. Gold out of the deal and did a new deal with us. And for that, we got a very strong option agreement, got a good quality royalty, and we also got what's called the Hank royalty in northern British Columbia, which sits beside the Highway 37 project. So they'll be drilling there again this year. We're getting the option payments that we get from Nevada Gold Mines are roughly $750,000 to $1 million US a year. So very nice payment comes in. It's like having a mini royalty unto itself. So that rolls in every year for us.
Huh. Okay. So have all these possible catalysts. Which one do you think, if you're a betting man,
Wow.
which you are, what if you had to say which catalyst is going to hit first? Which one do you think it'll be?
Well, one we didn't talk about yet is Spring Peak, and we can just talk about it here. It's fine. Headwater Gold has a partnership with it was Newcrest, is now Newmont. We have the opportunity to own up to a 1% royalty on it. They made a find probably 3 years ago now on the Disco Zone, and they've been stringing together some good drill holes. They've been exploring in areas outside of our royalty AOI, so it's a really neat camp. And I think in time you'll see some movement towards getting. Oh, there it is. Good man. Our hope is that in time we get to see a resource come on this. But look, this has one of these Ermitano sized opportunities for us. We're very excited for it, and the management team at Headwater, they're great guys. And they've been doing really good work. So we're really happy. I think you're going to see some movement on that. Probably first, I would say Maggie Creek. And then look, if Rica hits, it's got a long road ahead of it to become something, but the value that could be created from a drill hole at Rica would be incredible for us. I think it's you look at any large Andean copper porphyry, and that's kind of what the target type we see at Rica could be like. And so that would provide tremendous value for us.
Okay. All right. Those are some
Yeah, I kind of sat on the fence. I didn't really say which one would be the first one, but look, we have so many things that are on the go that any one of them can take a big step forward, right, and be the next big value creator for us.
Okay. All right. Now, as far as going back to Silicon Merlin,
yep.
Looking at the drill holes that Anglo did, there's a lot of concentration, and the project is just getting bigger. We went from like 10 to 13. Now we're at 16.2 or 3 million ounces of gold. And then they stepped way out and just started doing all these exploratory ones that are way outside the bubble that seemed a little odd. I guess the concern, judging by the questions, and it was in my own mind as well, is that it looks to me like this project is going to get bigger, maybe twice as big. And our fear is that we may be selling a little too soon, maybe taking some money now. What are your thoughts on that? Is it kind of like selling when it's nothing but blue sky ahead is usually the time to sell, or like, give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it was something we wrestled with internally. We did 6 months ago, we started to embark on a kind of understanding our value sort of exercise. And I think it's healthy for any company to do this sort of stuff, to understand where you are within your valuation. And you're right, there's an opportunity to continue to watch us grow. And I share your same view. I think it's going to grow. I think it's going to become much bigger. But we also then looked at having this royalty and what it means to go out and try to grow our company. And so we looked at the valuation of where Orogen's at today. We looked at the opportunity to go and buy other assets. And every time we looked at other assets, first of all, we're not going to ever find an asset as good as Silicon. That's a pretty special asset. And so things that we looked at, were we going to issue paper, were we going to take on debt, and were we going to dilute shareholders' fractional ownership of Silicon? And that's kind of where it came to each time we got to this decision point. And so consequently, we never transacted on anything big over the past number of years, even though we really wanted to. It just, we didn't want to dilute our shareholders. And so when we started to look at some of the offers that started to come in the past month or so, we looked at, well, look, do we want to hang on? Do we know that Silicon's going to come into production in 2028? Is it going to come in 2030, 2031, 32? How big is it going to be? We look at the production rates. Is the future value, is what we're getting paid today, how far in the future does that equate to value? And so we got paid very well for the Silicon asset. And it's not based on the resources that we see today. It's also based on resources that we see to come in the future. So do we want to go down that road of incurring additional risk and things like that? Or do we want to take that money today and reward shareholders and then continue on? We can now go out and buy some of those assets that we once looked at, or do other things that we're not so worried about diluting shareholders' fractional ownership when you consider Silicon. And on the flip side, for Triple Flag, because people always say, well, who got the better deal? I think we both got a tremendous deal. Triple Flag has the road, they've got the runway to see the value come in, and they're going to get tremendous value down the road. But we've been paid for a lot of value today and a lot of value in the future. And so that was sort of the rationale. And so I don't think we've sold too early. And I, don't think that people have said, well, who sold out early, who overpaid. I don't think that was the case on either side of this. I think both parties won. And look, this royalty will operate for decades, or that mine will. And so I'm excited for that. And I just think it was a point of us being able to reward our shareholder base and providing a group the opportunity with the runway to take any sort of delays in startup or permitting and things like that. And I agree, this thing is going to be big. And look, the other thing too is, and I do, and this is why I want to hang on to my shares, is I'm a big believer in Silicon, and I want to hold Triple Flag's shares because I still want to be exposed to that upside in Silicon.
Yeah. The risk with that, well, I guess risk isn't the right word, but is you're less, if my math is right, I think it was 5.9% of Triple Flag that's going to be their value is of Silicon. With you guys, well, we just found out what the answer was, but it was significantly higher,
Yeah.
And so there's that part of it too. But okay, so we're going to get Triple Flag precious metal shares. We're going to get Orogen 2 shares. What cash is going to be left over, and what are your guys' plans with that?
So we'll have roughly 20 million. There's some variations of tax that we looked at worst case scenarios and best case scenarios, but I think we'll probably end up around the 20 million mark in terms of having cash left over. We are going to continue to look at lower level royalty assets to find things like the Rica, and other opportunities elsewhere in the market. I think that's where we'll always be most competitive because we're always looking for the geological angle. I think it'll always be hard for us to buy a producing royalty or things like that because of the way that the valuations people place on some of these cash flowing royalties. So I think we're going to be opportunistic. So I don't think you'll see us getting in on every royalty process and things like that. So the transactions on acquisition levels will probably be few and far between. We'll continue on with the prospect generation business. We can expand it a little bit, but I've always been worried about expanding things too much. We operate very efficiently. We have a very low cost of operation, and maintaining that profitability, maintaining sort of the share structure in the company is paramount to me. And I never want to dilute shareholders unless we're doing some sort of accretive transactional thing. And so that's I would say over the next sort of 2 years, that's where I can see us being, where else I can see us being at the moment from a strategic perspective.
Okay. Right on. Well, thank you, Paddy. If viewers want to, if they have any follow-up questions, how can they get a hold of, who should they contact and how should they get a hold of that person?
They can contact me. Email is Paddy, that's Paddy at orogenroyalties.com. I'm happy to take your questions. I'll answer them as best I can.
Okay. And that is the correct answer, ladies and gentlemen. You talked to the CEO himself, Paddy. Thank you very much for coming back on the show.
Steve, thank you. Pleasure.
Yes. And thank you for tuning in. Go to stevebartonmoney.com for more and have a wonderful day.